Welcome to Life in Marketing. Today we're chatting to an experienced marketer who has worked with some of the UK's best known brands.
Our guest CV includes time with Sky, Virgin, Amazon, BBC, and most recently, Just Eat.
We're excited to chat with Susan O'Brien, known as Suso, about the strategy behind these top brands, especially during periods of growth and change.
And of course, we do ask about that Just Eat jingle that we've all heard. Let's meet Suso.
Welcome, Suso, and thank you very much for taking the time to being with us today.
Oh, it's fabulous to be here. Thanks for having me.
Would you mind just for our listeners, just a very brief overview of what you've been doing over your very, very rich, fantastic career in marketing? That would be really helpful.
I, back in the day, was one of the few people who actually studied marketing. So my degree is in sociology, so I'm fascinated about human society and the interaction. And then I went on to Kingston Business School, where I've actually remained living in Southwest London. And the business school was incredibly vocational, very well connected to industry. So from a marketing point of view, I studied it, then was really, really keen to get into it. That was difficult, I'm not going to lie. And I took a marketing assistant role. I thought I wanted to work in the city, but ended up in media and telecoms. And that kind of squiggly career path, one might look at my CV and go, oh, that was really clearly well thought through and planned. Some of it was opportunistic and me seizing the moment and seizing the opportunity and kind of putting up my hand to go, I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to give it a try. And just learning through working with different organizations at different levels of their own growth and maturity. So that's a little bit about where I came from and my marketing history, if you like.
So your career really started in the telecoms industry, and I think it included some responsibility for sales.
Yeah, media and telecoms back in the day, working for a French-Canadian cable TV and telco based out of Acton, actually, in West London. So you are taking me back a bit. And I also, you're right, I had full responsibility for the sales team, which was eye-opening for me because it was kind of added to my remit with marketing. But look, what I'd say is whether you get into marketing from whatever angle, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the experience that you gain. And so if you're getting experience in sales, inevitably where you're getting that experience, you'll be linked within the marketing department at some point on that journey. But I think all experience is good experience. And whether that's formal, informal, paid, unpaid, just seize the opportunity to just gain any type of experience, trying to understand organizations, trying to understand the all important customer and be kind of customer centric in everything you do. But in a nutshell, just get any experience you can possibly get, even whilst you're still studying, doing postgrads or undergrads. I'd encourage you to just put your hand up and kind of seize every opportunity you can.
Thank you, Suso. Welcome, and really lovely to meet you, and thanks for giving us your time today. You mentioned media and telco, and just to give the listeners an idea of the sort of brands you've worked with, I think I'm right in saying that you've worked with Virgin, Sky, Amazon, BBC, and we'll come on a bit later to your work with Just Eat most recently. The one that stands out from your early career anyway was to work with Sky, because that seemed like a really exciting time for Sky when they were sort of growing massively during the 90s in particular. They had the Premier League rights, obviously, when the birth of the Premier League in the early 90s, I think that was. So that must have been a pretty exciting time for Sky and your career, sort of being alongside all of that growth. How did the brand develop during that time that you were there? Was it as exciting from within as it looks like from the outside?
Oh, you bet. You absolute bet. It was career defining, essentially. And I was there, I kind of left the kind of distribution outfit that I was working for with Videotron, which subsequently became United Artists, which became Virgin Media that people know and love today. And so I did a little bit of leaving there and going to Sky, but all in all, I was at Sky for around 10 years of my career. I met people at Sky who were incredibly brilliant, talented, can-do, winning mindset, all of that. The energy was electric. And there was a real, and I know it sounds a bit cliche, but there was a real level of dynamism and a real opportunity to make things happen and to execute what you're thinking about. basically shifting what was then essentially a distribution platform, dishes and cables under the ground, to an entertainment portal, essentially, and kind of moving that brand through that kind of hardware, software, and a combo of both in terms of where the money was to be made was fascinating for me at Sky. And yeah, it was career defining. And the people that I met there, we're still in touch.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that Sky was a challenger brand there, because we forget that. Now they're so established, a bit like Apple and a bit like Nike in the 70s, I think that was. We forget some of these household brands, they haven't always been household names.
Yeah, and I'll come back to that because you're right. We knew about BBC and Channel 4, and I had friends who'd finished their postgrad and got jobs with the Beeb and got jobs with Channel 4. And I was going to this outfit called Sky. And then, 10 years later, I'm still there and then was subsequently brand director with the most exciting content on the planet being acquired and shown to customers. And just that, almost like a hockey stick, growth curve in terms of acquiring customers, keeping customers, getting customers to buy more, which is essentially what marketing's all about, right? In terms of, it is the growth engine. It's about profitably getting more people to buy more at an attractive price point. And I was part of that and feel incredibly proud and privileged as well to have had that opportunity.
Would you say that the Premier League rights were actually an important consideration in the Sky brand?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a game changer back in the day. And again, it's back in the day because people now only know about that, right? But, back then you get this exclusive product. So if you think about it, the only place that you could watch that was there. So you had to have it. You're buying a USP, which is really hard to have these days, obviously, and the proliferation of where sports go. But back then it was an absolute game changer, which kind of drove that, the customer growth numbers. It was like, yeah, it was a big woot woot cheery moment and a huge level of investment and belief that was the right thing to do to grow the business.
The other thing that I always remember was The Simpsons as well. I could go my next door neighbour's house and go and watch The Simpsons.
Tommy, you're right there. You're taking me down a trip down memory lane. But the key thing, if you pull that back into marketing, is you then have an exclusive product that you can talk about, right? And so you're the storyteller as the marketer within the organization, and somebody gives you a little bit of gold dust and you go, thank you very much, I'll take that, and then I'll push that and make sure that everybody knows about it, maximizing reach, utilizing whatever media channels are available so that people are, in no uncertain circumstances, very aware of the only place you can get that content, that exclusive, is on that channel on Sky One. And so, yeah, it's like a marketer's dream.
Can I ask that, Suso, you've mentioned that, there was quite a bit of a budget there for you to, to do quite exciting campaigns to grow the market. Did you, as a marketeer, sort of feel that pressure that if, money was invested, but you didn't see the return on investment, for example, you didn't see the growth that was expected, did you feel the pressure? And if so, how did you manage to deal with it?
I think you always feel the pressure because, it's the company's money and you are investing it as wisely as you best see fit for the job to be done. So, if the job to be done is to grow the number of subscribers or to get customers, in this instance, to buy more channels, for example, can't do without Sky Sports or Sky Movies back in the day, different levels of subscription. And if you don't see that return, what do? Do you start all over again? Do you roll back, or do you hold your nerve and double down? Because not everything is short term. You have to build for tomorrow and hold your nerve.
Can I just double check on this one? Think of our listeners, some who are starting out in a marketing career, some who are quite established already. Are there any, I don't want to say coping strategies, but is there any advice you can give that you can say how to deal with that pressure, whether it's, distancing yourself from, I guess, the budgets or, finding alternative strategies if, those Monday mornings you didn't see the numbers as expected? Is there any sort of hands-on advice based on your years of experience that you could give to our listeners?
Listen, I think that in response to that question, the coping strategy would be one of don't lean back, lean in, always lean in and know what you're chasing, right? That's the one thing I think is really important for a marketeer, to almost be over communicative. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. What do you think? So having an open dialogue with your colleagues around you outside of the marketing department, making sure that you are building those relationships, because there are so many interdependencies within organizations, and that could be big corporates or it could be small agencies. I think the one thing I would say is, if you are not good with change, marketing will be a difficult place for you to live, because I talk about this a lot. The one thing that is a constant and has been a constant in my life, in my marketing career, has been change. And you need to feel comfortable with that. So comfortable with being uncomfortable is what I'd say, which is not meant to sound profound. It's meant to say things change. And if you're not good with change, it's going to be tricky for you to cope.
And really not shutting your eyes, actually, but as you said, taking it hands on or heads on and trying to find a solution, I guess. Can you walk us through the next step of your career? So what made you change or leave Sky, I guess, and what came after?
Crikey, there's a multitude of stories in that question alone. But look, the reality was, I then took I don't think my husband would agree, but I kind of took a step out. I had babies. And as a female leader, that comes with a responsibility. And, you make decisions about your career and where you go next. And so it was trying to find a way that I could still add value and impact as a marketer, but also I had a personal commitment that I wanted to fulfill as well. So yeah, I stepped back. Weirdly, I then went back as a consultant and helped them with the launch of Sky Italia, but that's another story. When they moved, out of it seemingly a UK-based organization into multiple markets, of which Italy was one of the first. So that was another chapter. But look, the real truth of this is, I needed something that allowed me more flexibility. And so I thought it'd be a really good idea to set up my own consultancy in brand and strategy. And that's what I did. But one of the things that comes with that as well is, you're not totally in control of your own destiny as a consultant, because you are working on different projects with different timelines, with different organizations, with different levels of input required. And so I did spend a lot of the time on and off planes. But fortuitously for me, I have fantastic support in my husband, who's always been a bit of a cheerleader on the side to assist in the way that it should be, and kind of had that role when it comes to childcare and me needing to be in a different country halfway around the world when I got small babies. So I don't want to labor that point, other than, there are choices that you make within your career, and then it's how you best manage them. But yeah, that kind of period of consultancy was important. Now, here's the thing, coming back to one of your first questions, Tom, the people you meet, the relationships that you build are critical, because if I think about where some of those projects came from during my years as a consultant, it was from people that I'd met on my professional journey so far, who saw my work, saw the value that I added, and said, Suso can help me deliver that project. Suso, are you in for it? Now, that was a dream in a way, but also it was the result of hard work and the relationships that you'd built through the networking that you'd done, both in your role and the partners that you were working with, your agencies, for example, who are an extended part of the team in most organizations when you're investing in third-party support. But the majority came through my network.
Do you mind me asking what sort of things you used to do to network? And obviously nowadays we've got LinkedIn, which is really helpful to keep up to date with what other people you used to work with are now doing and things like that. But that hasn't always been hasn't always been around. So what other things did you do in the course of your career to make sure that those networks were always there around you?
Tom, it's a great question, and you're right. I think that this generation has got the kind of gift of LinkedIn to facilitate some of that, to fast track from a time point of view and make those connections. Some of the things I would do would be to attend events, in terms of your own professional development, courses, speakers. And that's what I meant earlier. It can be quite tiring and quite hard. But, just being curious, and now you've got podcasts, and now, you can see behind me. I know our listeners probably can't, but if in doubt, buy a book and make those connections there. But again, a lot of this is about putting your head above the parapet, volunteering for things, attending panels, doing things at university, just, having a voice and making all of those connections. So you never know when you're going to need them. And you never know when you're going to be called upon yourself in that own kind of reciprocation of when people might need your support. And that's also a lovely thing to be able to do in terms of giving back when people have supported you on your journey and your professional career.
Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about projects that you took on as a consultant? So whether, one of your favorite projects or something that was particularly interesting to work on, especially while you were self-employed?
Oh, crikey, I did quite a lot, actually. And very lucky for me, I got to travel the world, both, projects in the Middle East, which is quite unusual from a cultural point of view, and a learning as a female marketeer as well, to Kuwait and Russia and all of Europe. So did lots of stuff. I did a great project actually with Vodafone, and I worked as a consultant with an organization called Cause and Effect, who are now known as C&E Advisory. And that was around a partnership project with the National Autistic Society and Vodafone, all around communication. So it was kind of in the corporate social responsibility space, which was new for me, but very enriching and really meaningful. But there were many. So yeah, incredibly lucky to have the opportunity to work on those types of transformative projects, essentially.
You kind of alluded to this already, but you have a big or long career in both working for brands or businesses as well as being self-employed. What would you say are the pros and cons of being a consultant, sort of having your own agency?
Feast or famine, not really knowing where the next project's coming from, and then kind of, having to do a bit of tap dancing whilst you've got one project and another project might come in, and you're like, oh, do I say no to that? Because it doesn't work in nice little boxes. And again, that's the point that, the agility piece, the being comfortable with change. But the one thing I would say is about believing in yourself. Believe in yourself. That's a hard thing. Easy to say, isn't it? But I would encourage people to make sure that they have a mentor where they can, if they can have a coach, so that they've got a sounding board and somebody who has essentially walked in their shoes to provide that wise counsel when they're feeling maybe less confident or vulnerable. I think that, yeah, it's kind of believe in yourself and know that you can do it. And what's the worst thing that can happen? What is the worst thing that can happen?
How did your consultancy work take you to Just Eat and eventually then back into working for a brand rather than being a consultant? Because I think am I right in thinking that's how the Just Eat opportunity came about?
We've come full circle. I talked about the power of the network. I talked about the power of working with talented people where you are. And I've got a smile on my face because the beauty of this one is that the Just Eat consultancy project came up through a previous connection that I had at Sky years and years and years before. And I got the phone call. And I can add a little bit of glamour to this podcast. I was in the back of a yellow cab in New York City with my daughter. And we were celebrating her birthday, one of her birthdays. And I got a call saying, Suso, I need your help. Don't say no, just have a little think about it. I need you to come and help me work on a rebrand for this company that I'm working for. And I said, well, no, don't say no. Just have a think about it and call me when you're back from New York. Anyway, the rest is history. I won't bore everyone with it. But I went in as a consultant on a very specific rebrand project for the UK. Again, shifting Just Eat, I suppose, from a kind of what was known as a kind of kebab and burger delivery outfit into a cool tech company with a much greater food portfolio offering, whatever you want to call it, and kind of making sure that the rebrand that we did was a sign of change versus the other way around. So it wasn't just let's change it for change's sake. It was we are strategically shifting into a different space. And we want that to be reflected in how we look and how we sound. And so it was part of a much wider strategy to make sure that it was a sign of change versus a change of sign. And that is the honest answer. And then, hey, Suso, do you want to stay permanently? Not sure. Come on. And then, became CMO.
Obviously, a big part of becoming a cool brand was the advertising, which is well known for being cool. He's got a really great slogan. I'm not going to sing it, but we probably all could sing it. Of course, there was Snoop Dogg and Katy Perry in the adverts too.
These things don't happen overnight, but to add a little bit of flavour to that is that a new chief exec had come in. We were moving at that time from everything being local to a scalable central marketing function. How could we do that was still meaningful and locally culturally relevant and get that kind of engagement with customers? So kind of fast forward a whole heap of work that was done, from writing the brief to engaging with the right type of agency partner, both media and creative and social, and coming up with this back crazy idea of getting into the psyche and using the brand platform of Did Somebody Say in multiple languages across multiple markets, that had the kind of indirect call to action of the answer always being Just Eat, or whatever we were called in the local markets, because Just Eat is a global brand, just called different things in different markets, but looks the same, sounds the same across different markets. So different cultures, different generations, because we wanted to be a brand for everyone. And then you go down the path of how do you do that quickly? And you can do that more quickly from a fame driving communication by using the halo effect of a talent icon. And so you then go into research, you then talk a lot with lawyers, and then you start the negotiations, which can be incredibly painful, where you become best friends with the legal team. And then you land on a celebrity where you then test for recognition and test for any red flags. And there may have been a few. And then you land on something which also happened at a very tricky time called COVID in May 2020, where you shoot this amazing commercial and then the world implodes. And so we thought we had a piece of gold. We got it to market, and we made sure that we invested the right levels of media for people to see it and to talk about it and to share it organically, which is the marketeer's holy grail, where your work is being sought out versus it's a commercial, guys.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of a super quick piece of how we got to Snoop.
I have to say, Snoop is such a great choice, because there are certain celebrities who probably don't have that cross-generational appeal in a way that someone like Snoop does.
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, that kind of universality of music and his type of music, and making sure that the lyrics had all the commercial levers that we wanted to communicate. But he's a bit of a commercial guru himself. But yes, Tom, you're right. It's finding the right person to do the job that needs to be done for you. And it isn't easy. What consumers and you saw was kind of the finished product. The journey to get there, very restless, a lot of blood, sweat and tears.
Susan, it's been so great talking with you, and learned so much, and it's just fascinating sort of hearing about your career. But before we let you go, we have a few quick fire questions, and I'd like you to ask you just to say the very first thing that comes to mind, okay? Your favorite marketing campaign of all times?
Specsavers. Pure genius. And it's been going for more than 20 years, right? That a one creative idea that still is meaningful, has got humor, relatability, it's in the cultural psyche. People use the line, should have gone to Specsavers, and it's a stroke of genius.
Brilliant.
Is there a tool or app that you can't live without?
There's a couple. Google Maps. I might not be like for this one, but as a working mom, Amazon has been an absolute lifesaver for me. So yeah, Amazon, I don't want to admit, I've got to be using that 2-3 times a week.
Most underrated skill in marketing?
I think the critical imperative of working cross-functionally.
Mm-hmm.
because it's not all about marketing. It's how marketing connects and has the ability to connect with other functions within the organization, and just getting that alignment on what you're chasing, what those commercial metrics are, because that's why the marketing department exists, is to achieve those ideally commercial growth targets.
And last question, what's the biggest misconception about people who work in marketing?
That it's all about working with Snoop Dogg. So I think it's the 4 Ps, Tom. It goes back to good old marketing theory. It's not all about promotion. The product, the price, very important, and the place in terms of where you are is as critical as the wonderful stuff that you put on the top. It's everything working together in beautiful harmony to get you to that. So I think that's the biggest misconception in marketing, is it's all about working with Katy Perry, Snoop Dogg, and Christina Aguilera.
Very true. Well, thank you so much for giving up your time. It's been really valuable for the listeners. I'm sure it's been great chatting to you. If people want to get in contact with you, what would you recommend that they do? Is LinkedIn a good starting point?
Tom, feel free, anyone, to connect with me on LinkedIn. We can share and swap stories, but I'm excited for those listening because they're just at the very beginning of their exciting career, hopefully in marketing. And who doesn't want to work in marketing? It's the best department in any organization. So yeah, you do great work that delivers great results that everyone's proud of, and you get to have fun along the way. So good luck, everyone, in your marketing journey.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.